to get us kind of in the space, in the mood, in the right headspace, we're gonna have a session. So we can get everybody to come and pay attention and slide and navigate, gravitate towards the front. Muchas gracias. Bienvenidos. Exactly. You know that? That's Spanish, man. You learn Spanish. That's my thing. All right. So, to lead us in a session, I'm going to bring up my dear friend. She has started a company, a movement, Intentionality Wins. She'll tell you a little bit about that. She's an amazing person, but she's going to help us get our minds and our spirits right real quick. So please give some adoration to Ms. Vernica Winter.
Thank you. So as he said, my name is Vernica Winter. I'm the founder of Intentionality Wins. I'm a certified social and emotional intelligence coach. So what does that mean in layman's terms? That means I help people find their happy place. I'm passionate about everyone finding that space in their life that they can be emotionally balanced. Raise your hand if you've ever had a stressful day. If you don't raise your hand, you make me nervous. You make me nervous.
I said not yet.
Oh! Well, if you've ever had a stressful day, then you know how important it is that you understand how to balance yourself emotionally, how to regroup. I always say that every emotion is valid. You know, sadness is valid, happiness is valid, so there's no such thing as a bad emotion, right? But it's important that we're never stuck in an emotion. So today we're going to dive into just a small meditation to give us an opportunity to just ground ourselves, find our inner space. We have such an amazing event today. So it's just an opportunity for us to connect on an emotional level. We're going to do some soft belly breathing, and we'll go into an emotional shift. And these are just small things that you can do in the office, at home, at work, anywhere that allows you to just gather yourselves, balance yourselves, and find your happy place. So if you can find a comfortable space, if you're seated, you can put your feet flat on the ground. If you're standing, face yourself, both feet solidly planted. You can close your eyes or you can gaze down. And if you can just take some deep breaths in through your nose and out through your mouth. And with each inhale, you want to focus on your breath in through your nose and out through your mouth. With every inhale, allow your belly to expand. And with every exhale, allow your belly to flatten. Inhale through your nose and exhale through your mouth. Allow your belly to be soft in through your nose and out through your mouth. If you feel any tension in your body, drop your shoulders. Notice the tension and release it as you focus your attention on your breath in through your nose and out through your mouth. If thoughts come, let them come. Acknowledge them and focus your attention back on your breath in through your nose and out through your mouth. You can put your hands on your belly. With every inhale, you want to feel your belly fill with air. With every exhale, feel your belly flatten. Focus your attention on your breath in through your nose and out through your mouth. Repeat after me. I choose peace.
I choose peace.
I choose peace. In through your nose and out through your mouth. I choose joy.
I
I choose joy. In through your nose and out through your mouth. I choose happiness. I choose happiness. In through your nose and out through your mouth. I choose gratitude. I choose gratitude. In through your nose and out through your mouth. I choose self-love. I choose self-love. In through your nose and out through your mouth. Focus your attention on your breath. Allow your thoughts to clear. And focus on the air as it fills your lungs in through your nose, out through your mouth. 3 more deep breaths in through your nose. Take a moment to be in the present space and return your attention back to this room as you open your eyes and return back to this space. And a lot of being mindful has to do with being present in the moment and feeling the emotions that you're feeling, acknowledging them. So take that time to feel, take that time to acknowledge those feelings, relax. Find your peaceful place, and thank you for joining me this afternoon.
All right. We feel good, we feel calm, centered. Yes. All right. One more time, Ms. Winter. Can we find you on, where can we find you? Yet? Not yet? Okay.
So as he said, I'm working on creating all of the pages. You can DM me at Vernica V on Instagram. Look out for Intentionality Wins. I'm going to be launching the official business website and social medias. That's WYNS as my last name, so Intentionality Wins. I'm going to do a launch in the next few weeks of the website and the official social media. So for now, you're welcome to DM me at Vernica B, and that's VERNICCA, B as in boy, on Instagram. Thank you so much, guys. Or you can just find me through this guy.
All right, cool. Awesome. So we're gonna get started and have hopefully a rousing and amazing conversation here in just a minute. So as we get ready for the conversation and thinking about what Vernica was just mentioning about intentionality, what she was just speaking about in regards to centering self-love and joy, let that inform this conversation as we get into it. We have some very talented, insightful thinkers and activists and organizers who are going to lead us through this conversation. So, but it's an engaging conversation, and we want your voice. So please be ready and prepared to give us voice, to give feedback, and to give enlightenment. So we're going to transition to that in just a few minutes, but in the meantime, the DJ Echo Slim got you. He takes requests for Cash App. So if you got requests, make sure you Cash App them. We got you. And check out, again, Sweetie's Icy's in the back, and the amazing handmade jewelry back there by Miss Therese. So we're blissfully unapologetic. All right, so we're going to transition to just 2 shakes of a lamb's tail. All right, thank you. All right. seamless means you carry a little weight, right? You walk into a building, people start doing stuff just because she'd say, I'm here. That's what that means.
Thank you, Darius, for that extremely colorful introduction. Yeah, like you said, my name is CJ Staples. I am the lead organizer for the Broward Squad Dream Defenders. And yeah, to answer your question, Darius, I believe that the last year and a half, one could say the last 5.5 years, the last 9.5 years have been, I guess, historic, right? You know, we went from the first Black president in the country's history to the first orange president in the country's history, to the first legitimate pandemic in anyone I imagine is alive's history, right? So a lot of life-changing, history book-making events happening in just a single generation. And I believe that while through my own experiences, I have seen an extremely large kind of, shift to organizing activism, heightened awareness of the issues, even more so than when Obama was president, I believe. I mean, I think that, even myself included, I was a little undereducated or misinformed when he was in office, and when 45 came in, I was like, you know what, let me start paying attention, because this ain't right. Like, there's no reason why things should be like this right now, even from a local perspective. You just kind of get a little bit more attentive and more aware. You want to, educate yourself a little bit more. So I think that, and I actually have a couple of people here in the audience that I've, coalesced with throughout the year and a half of this pandemic. We've been doing, organizing protests, marches, rallies, phone banks, canvases, all different types of events to try to get the community, more engaged in things that are important to them. But yeah, you talk to people and you listen to the issues that they have, and whether it's local or federal. But yeah, they are absolutely. There is a strategy from the right to absolutely disenfranchise us and take us back to the days when, even if you wanted to vote, even if you wanted to be politically engaged, it was next to impossible. One of the issues I believe that Joe Scott was talking about, where where they're trying to shorten the deadline between registering to vote and actually being able to vote, because I believe in Broward County it's something like 30 days from like the actual election day that you can that you're able to register. And if anyone has ever registered to vote before in this room, you know that it takes like 37 seconds. So there's really no reason for there to be that deadline so far out. You can literally register to vote and then vote that same day. So just one of those things that if you're not aware of, can absolutely impact you if you're one of those kind of last minute voters. But that's just an example of one of the many ways that Republicans, the white right, is trying to kind of shift and win back the House, the Senate, the White House. I believe that we were all really, really excited when Trump won, and then we stopped paying attention. And the minute we stopped paying attention, Trump. I'm sorry. When Trump lost, we were really excited. Oh my God, did you get that on camera? Delete that. No, we were all really excited when Trump lost last year. And then, they kind of kicked things up into overdrive, put a lot of money into these different legislations that, kind of take us back to a really bad time in this country. And this is the time that we need to start paying attention, even more now than ever before, because we are absolutely under attack. So, yeah, I don't want to take up too much time, but yeah, let me pass it on over to Santra. And what are your thoughts?
Sure. Hi, everyone. Sorry if I'm not dressed according to y'all, but I had to go to my uncle's church, so the church people don't play that. I'm so happy to be here with y'all. I'm a native to Broward, so much love for people who are here. I grew up in Melrose Park. And so, you know, my perspective and analysis is always that I dare to believe that in our generation we can see a better America. And fundamentally, the reason why I believe that is because I believe in people. I'm a child of Haitian folks who truly believe in the power of people and the power of collective folks to really come together and fight back and to make sure that there is liberation for us all. That doesn't happen top down, that doesn't happen from elected officials, that doesn't happen from the president. That happens when people are motivated and are fed up. That is the only way that government has worked for us. And we have actually forced government to work for us. And so right now, one of the things that I continue to have to remind myself of is that of all the pleasures that we live, that we have in Americas, while it is so much more issues that we're fighting for, but as we think about the pleasures, the 40-hour work weeks, the minimum wage of some sort, even black folks having the ability to vote, that happened out of struggle. That didn't just happen, right? People didn't just wake up one day and say that black folks should be free, right? All of this came out of struggle. And for me, the last year, what's come up for me is I see now or I hope to see more people realizing that it doesn't come easy, it only comes out of struggle. Right, and if we're not careful, for me, we are at a place where black folks specifically are, in terms of wealth gap, you know, our wealth gap and the gap between us and affluent folks resembles that of slavery, resembles that of Jim Crow. And so I think it's hard to talk about race in America, but the underlying thing, there's a class war happening. And so I think we really need to think about how there are folks who are white, but also very affluent, right? How there's a system that allows for them to advance so much further than us, while all of us are being left behind. And that's working poor white folks, working poor black people, working hard. People who are working at Amazon, they are working hard. And there's no way they're gonna get to what Jeff Bezos make, right? They can work from now to sunset, sunrise, keep working all day. There's no pathway for them to be that of Jeff Bezos. And for us, it's again, are we ready for what this struggle looks like in order to make sure that there's true liberation for all of us? And then I'll say this in our pause. I try to have us imagine, because one of the things when you're in struggle, your ability to imagine what it could be is really suppressed because you're like always on struggle, always in fight mode. And so I imagine that, you know, we could see a world where we don't see people getting evicted. We don't see people working 40 hours, working 2 jobs and not being able to pay their bills. That a shock like the pandemic will turn someone's life upside down in the wealthiest country in the world. And so this is a discussion and a dialogue that I would want to have with y'all, not only with y'all because I represent not just me, but the communities that I've been a part of, that is my responsibility to take back what we talk about today to them, because you know, we are the folks. If we're interested, we not only need to be interested for us, we gotta be interested for our families, for our communities. So I hope this dialogue doesn't stay with us, who maybe 50 of us, 65 of us in here today, but the dialogue could also, you know, expand to 600 folks who weren't even here, but watched or heard from you all about a movement that needs to happen in order to set, to change the course in the direction of this country.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Asha. Now, if you are unfamiliar with Dream Defenders, we are an abolition group. So we believe in the abolition of the police, mass incarceration, jails, right? We have alternative solutions for those things, right? We're not just gonna open the doors and just let everybody come flying out, right? We believe that what we see, right? I mean, if you look into history, right? There was a world without police at some point in history, and there can exist a world without them, right? They were created to round up slaves. So when we think about why police were created in the first place and the role that they serve in this communities that we see today, it's not that far off, right? It's not that, distant. And yes, we have, police officers of all different races and cultures and, religions, but they all do still serve that same system. So we are also socialists, right? So while I am extremely happy to see, very successful and affluent Black people, whether they are business men and women, entrepreneurs, athletes, celebrities, actors, they're not representative of the entire Black community, right? I mean, even during slave times, there were, successful Black individuals, but we can only say that things are getting better when the entire Black community as a whole can say that we are better than we were 50, 60, 70 years ago, and we just can't say that overall. We can say that there are a little bit more Black successful individuals than they were maybe 60, 70 years ago, but that's not enough for me. I don't care how much money Jay-Z has. So when I think about the process and like how the electoral system operates and what we would actually have to do in order to make real legislative changes that benefit the Black and brown communities, another part of me is like, okay, well, while we're getting to that point, because it's going to take a long time, we got to make sure that we got to elect so many people that believe in what we believe that it actually changes the dynamic of the Capitol, right? But in the meantime, we need to be doing things within our own communities that create a sustainable living situation. Like we were talking about the pandemic, right? If we had a collective community of like contributing people, like maybe $2 a month, you just throw it into a pot somewhere, right? You buy up a building, like a residential building. If another pandemic hits, we have a building that we can bring people to that are getting evicted, that they can live and survive and not have to be out on the streets. I mean, when you think about all of the people who were affected by the pandemic, just because they didn't have jobs or just because their landlords didn't care that they didn't have any way to pay the rent, knowing what the situation was. We have to figure out ways to take care of ourselves because literally no one else is going to do that for us. It's not going to happen in Tallahassee.
And disenfranchisement with this level of poverty in our communities, right? And we're talking about policies. There are policies in this country, policies in this state that allow for our communities to continue to be at the bottom of the barrel. And who makes those policies? The people we vote for. Guess who paid for those people too? Their salaries, our taxes, our dollars. So again, I think it's like people who make those policies that allow for us to continue to be at the bottom of the barrel get voted by us. And not only get voted by us, our tax dollars that Uncle Sam takes out before we even see it. Like they don't just ask us, can you give it on the back end? No, up front, they take their money, we pay them. And so to me in Tallahassee, for folks who live in Florida, specifically Broward County, the most progressive county in the state, there is a responsibility, it posts, but it is true. There is a responsibility that we have to show up to every election. And I'm not only talking about presidential elections, we're talking about local, state, school board, HOA elections, student government, we want them all. Because they all have decisions that they're making with our monies, right? And so when we don't show up, we allow for people to do anything they want to and put policies in place that don't advantage us. And I'll give you a few examples and I'll be quiet. And for sure, if y'all have questions or dialogue or comments, please talk to us. Because we want this to be, okay, perfect, Stat. I'll give an example of two things that happened. Miami-Dade County, where I work, the mayor of Miami-Dade County had a local moratorium in place. And she had it in place past the state. When the state removed their moratorium, Miami-Dade County's eviction moratorium was still in place. Meaning that the mayor, in her control, was not allowing for the sheriff's department to put people out of their homes during this pandemic. How did that happen? Miami-Dade County voted her. The residents of Miami-Dade County. And I'm sure at some point she might do some things wrong, but in terms of holding back evictions in Miami-Dade County, she's a star throughout the country. Miami-Dade County had a model around eviction moratoriums that stems from hurricanes, because people were putting people out during hurricanes. No. You know who make those decisions? The people we vote for, the people who we pay are putting us out at the worst times of our lives. That's not right. And they got the best health care. They're getting paid well, right on our dime. So those are examples. And then one more example I'll give you is right now, if you are experiencing eviction, unless you have all the money up front or an attorney, you don't even get to go before a judge. Right? So there was a bill that some legislators put up during this session where there's something called landlord accountability, that at the least you should have a mediation with your landlord before you throw it out the street. At least you should get an attorney assigned to you to go before the judge. It didn't even get heard in the Senate. Right? So, right now you don't got a chance in Tallahassee for progressive policies, but what I'm saying is we then have to show up. We then have to vote people, and there's a lot around voting. It doesn't fix everything, but it's an opportunity to get people, good people, in position to make those policies. Because we can fight all day, rah, 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 and protest. I think it's all important, but if we don't have the numbers to get things passed through, it ain't never gonna happen for us. And so I think that is an analysis for us to really be critical about. And then not only that, we gotta have the right people running. But there are great people in our communities who have ethics, who understand that you have to be a legislator. Meaning you need to know that job. There are a lot of us who think it's like, a nonprofit. Let's give bikes, let's give turkeys. That ain't the role of a legislator. You need to be legislating. You need to understand that. And we need to vote those people in who are thinking for our community long term, who get that, right? And I think that is our power. That is what we can do. And if elections are not your thing, I get it. But know that politics is all around you. All around you. Everything you do, the food you eat, the air that you breathe, the homes that you live in, politics is all around it. Someone is making a policy that impacts all of that. And that is your money on the table. You should have a decision in who those folks are. And sorry to be a lecturer, but I just want to make it plain for us today that if in 2021 and 2022, midterm elections, we don't get serious, things are going to be worse for the 99% being us. Because if we think, those of us, master's degree, college educated people, we think we have enough to take us over another pandemic, we ain't got it. The affluent people, they got it. Our little, 10,000 in a bank account ain't shit compared to what they got. I'm sorry, excuse me. Right? It's nothing. Drops in the bucket, right? And so I just want to pause there around this class undertone that we don't talk about a lot in America. Some people getting rich and the rest of us getting real poor. You were stacked, sir.
Absolutely. Go ahead, Mike.
So I wanted to say two things. I really appreciate how you say you like that emphasis on narrative. Right, but I want to challenge that particular statement about America being, or the United States, I should say, being the richest country in the world, right? That is no longer true. It has been for a while, right? As a matter of fact, we fall behind in major statistics behind every other industrialized nation and all kinds of things, right? Like we're actually 17th in GDP, we're 20-something in education, 40-something when you start to break into the numbers of reading and math and things like that. So I think it's important for us to actually be honest and more direct about the narrative that is built around this country. That it is not the richest country in the world. It is not the best country in the world. And we need to argue about the power versus influence subject in that, right? Because one of the things that we talked about with the right often in our coalition is how they are so good at manipulating that conversation, right? And how the left doesn't really, the left can only respond to it. They don't ever do anything to really lead the conversation. And I think that if we want more people to be engaged, we need to be even more honest about the reality of every day in this country and what it means for this country to have means for the world. And then second, I wanted to talk about how we actually build democracy, because even though we do have democracy in our voting system, technically with the government, we do not live in a democracy. Every single day we live in hierarchies. As children, we answer to our parents. Our parents go to work, they answer to their bosses. When our children go to school, they answer to the teacher answers to the administrator answers to the superintendent. There are hierarchies all over the place that do not actually encourage our people to think for themselves. There are cultural practices that do not encourage us to own ourselves and think for ourselves and create ourselves and move forward. And I think that is the greatest detriment of why we cannot actually come together as a community and determine what our future will be and move forward together, because everybody is too concerned about their own individual wealth, their own individual whatever is going on. And I think that relates back to what you said. And to my first comment about narrative and understanding that individualism is not natural for us. It's collectivism. And we need to do more to build on that in our community in order to get any kind of thing.
One quick response to the narrative part. In no way when I say America is the richest country in the world do I mean in terms of we got money, in terms of education system, healthcare, we got the worst healthcare, education system is not right. I want to say all that is really true. We're not producing in the ways that we should. And when you think about the wealthiest people and the access to resources, when you look at that list of the 10 wealthiest people in the world, they're here. There's this whole thing around vaccination right now. I'm not sure where people are. Whatever you believe is fine with me, because that people have to do what's good for them. But there are countries who have not received a single vaccine, and we're hoarding them. That's what I mean in terms of resources, right? And not only hoarding them, they're going back. They got a lifeline. Right? And so that's what I mean. So I 100% agree. I'm in full agreement that we got a lot of work to do. And I come from a place of abundance. There's enough for everyone here. And we like to believe that there's not, there is. Right? And so like, that's what I mean when I say, wealthy. We're not wealthy in the most meaningful way. But there are people with so much resources. Last thing really quick about this whole narrative, even in the vaccines. We forget that. Guess who's paying for those vaccines that we get for free? Our tax dollars. Other countries, you gotta pay big money to get vaccines. A lot of us don't think about that. And pharmaceutical companies are making a killing off of us. And no one's talking about healthcare right now. We all need healthcare, access to healthcare. Whatever kind of healthcare, universal healthcare system, they're making a killing, we're paying for it. So I just want to name that in terms of they didn't want to do universal health care, but we got enough money to make sure that these pharmaceutical companies get rich, and they're making hell of money right now.
Absolutely. And like I said, speaking to like narrative and messaging, we talked about the vaccines, and they just announced that Biden is going to be, giving 500 million vaccines to countries across the globe, and we like tout that as if that's, amazing, when it's like when Chris Rock used to say, fathers always talking about take care of our kids. And that's what you're supposed to do. If you got 500 million vaccines in a country of 300 million, give some of them away. Like, that's just common sense. It's not a new disease is gonna come up later. Like, it's the same vaccine. Give it to them. So, to your point around politics is all around us. Like, where we are sitting right now, right? Cis-Trump. I mean, you go right across the street with Cis-Trump Marketplace. I ain't never seen so many white people in Cis-Trump in my life. And I've only been in Florida for 11 years. I'm originally from New Jersey. That absolutely are fighting for us, or aim to fight for us, have the same passions, the same goals. They come from the same neighborhoods as us. And really quick, I don't even want to take up too much more time, so I can allow this individual to actually address you all. We have one of them in the building today. Really passionate brother, young cat, and I've known him for a few months now, but just having conversations with him and kind of seeing what he's about, like, I absolutely believe that he represents what I believe in, and he has my support. I mean, and I'm not giving a Dream Defenders endorsement right now, but he absolutely has my support. So I just want to give him a couple of minutes just to address you all and talk to you for a minute. So just get your hands together really quick for Elijah Manley.
Thank you. Hey y'all, I'm Elijah. I'm 22 years old. Promise you I am. I have my ID. Some people are wondering. I'm old enough. I grew up right here in Sistrunk on 20th Ave, right by BG's. Some of you know that area. I'm running for the Florida House of Representatives in District 94. And if you don't know where that is, that's majority Fort Lauderdale, Wilton Manors, Oakland Park, Lauderdale Lakes, Lauderdale Plantation. A lot of stuff opening up this year after our late Congressman Hastings passed away. So, I'm just excited to be here. I wanted to stop by. CJ told me last night I was almost asleep when he texted me and told me, I want to see you come out to this event. I'm like, this man telling me at the last minute. But I'm glad to be here. I'll share a little bit of my vision. I don't want to take up too much time for the discussion. But we've been through a lot this past year and a half. I mean, these past 5 years, we've been through a lot. We've seen a lot, the rise in white supremacy in this country, which has always been there. This isn't anything new in this country. But we've seen, it emboldened, and we've seen it manifest in our political systems in Tallahassee and Washington, D.C. And, this pandemic really brought a lot of things to light. A lot of things, we talk about housing, and we saw those disparities in our face, people being kicked out of their homes in the middle of a pandemic, working people working longer hours, getting paid crap. And nobody there for them. And, when you talk about wanting to serve, I think it's important that you have that vision, that you know your community, and you're able to listen to people. And right now, there are a lot of people who are running who are in it for themselves. They have their own agendas. And it's important to have people in Tallahassee. So I know when I get to Tallahassee, I'm not holding any punches back. We're going to get right to work dealing with the issues that we've seen manifest in our community this past year and a half, starting with housing. Like both CJ and Sandra said, there's no reason why we have this amount of homeless people out on our streets. There's no reason why we can't house everyone. There's no reason why we can't feed everyone. There's no reason why we can't provide health care to every single person in this state and in this country. There's just no reason why we can't do any of those things. We have the resources, we have the money, we have an abundance of it. So I challenge everyone here to really imagine. I said last year that, I ran last year, I said, I dare to imagine, and what that means is I dare to imagine a better world. I dare to imagine something that was really better for everybody. And that's why I decided to run. I got tired of seeing the problems of my community and just sitting by and doing nothing about it. And as a person who grew up in this community, who witnessed homelessness myself and poverty firsthand, I'm able to speak to these issues in a way that many people in those big, tall, white buildings in Tallahassee can. People who've been in those buildings for decades, some of them lobbyists, some of them from chamber to chamber, mostly white and old, mostly wealthy. Poll came out showing that over 70% of legislators in the state of Florida are millionaires. Last time I checked, 70% of the people in Florida are not millionaires. We're living paycheck to paycheck, or 2 paychecks away from being out on the street. So for me, it's important to have somebody in Tallahassee, in these buildings, who's willing to listen. And I challenge everyone to make sure they hold me accountable when I get there too. Because like they said, politicians are not your heroes, they're not your friends, they're there to serve you, and you need to make sure that they're doing the job that you sent them to do. There's a lot of people in office who come around election time and then they disappear after they got your vote, after they secured their 2-year term or their 4-year term, and then they're gone and you don't see them anymore. I want to change that. I want to reimagine the engagement of people in our communities, get people involved in. The biggest challenge I'm giving people is young people need to get involved in this system, because this is really our future we're talking about, all of these things. And you know, right now we might not be feeling the full brunt force of it yet, but I promise you we will. Whether that's with healthcare, that's with climate change and sea level rise, with the criminal justice system. They may not have come for you yet, but you are on that menu, and you next. You're the main course, or the appetizer, whichever one you want. But I really want the younger people to get involved in the system and pay attention, whether that's running for office, voting. Voting might not be everyone's thing. You know, I spoke with a voter the other day who said, you know, I support you, I like you and everything, I just don't believe in the system. And that was a younger person, and I don't want to vote. I respect that. I'm not going to force you to or tell you what to do, but be more cognizant of what's going on in the community. And I know almost everyone here probably is. Find somebody else who may not care. It doesn't have to be, you know, about an election or anything. It's just important for people to know what's happening around them. You know, when I go to school board meetings or city commission meetings, most of the time I'm the only one there. I mean, I'm 22. I've been going to these meetings since I was 14, 15 years old. And 90% of the time, I'm the only one in the room when they're voting on these agenda items affecting our lives. When I go to Tallahassee, to the session sometime, to committee, I'm the only one there sometime, when there are very few people there. So we really need people to get involved and pay attention to what's going on in our communities. Those things are just too important for us to turn a blind eye to or to not care. People in power want you to feel like you don't have any power. They want you to feel like you can't get involved. That's why these meetings are held on work days at 10 a.m. on Tuesdays. Nobody can be there. I can't because I'm just a kid. But get involved and pay attention to all of the things that are happening in the community, like they're doing with voter suppression. They're trying to make it harder for you to vote. They're trying to make it harder for you to run for office now too, with some of the legislation I'm proposing. And what our governor is doing with the bill that just passed this session, which will allow him to come into our county and appoint people into all of these positions without an election for 4 years. That's just wow. That's just wow. So we see democracy, or any resemblance of it, the pretense of democracy, even being taken out of the equation now. So I'm not going to take up too much time, but I want people to be involved. Feel free to reach out to me at any time. I have a petition to sign to get on a ballot. Check out my website, and really, if you feel,
petition is important.
oh yeah, I'm going to tell you why petitions are important. This is, if you don't, so in the state of Florida, they require you to, in order to get on a ballot, you have to get a certain percentage of petitions, depending on the office you're running for. That can be 1,000, 20,000, 700,000 if you're running statewide. And if you don't, you have to pay a fee. The fee for me would be close to $2,000. For Congress, it's $10,000. So most working class people can't afford to do that. So it's important for, you know, when you see a candidate out there, whoever they may be, it could be my opponent too, and someone's reaching out, give you the opportunity to sign a petition, and sign it if you could, if you feel really strong about that, do it. That's going to help because people may not have the resources, the money to do this, and they're taking the time to be out there and doing that. And most candidates don't actually go the petition route. They just drop the money. They drop the $2,000 or the $10,000 or in other cases the $15K, and they're done with it. So they don't have to talk to people. But it's important to have conversations. It's important for people to be in your community, knocking on your doors, having those conversations with you, especially if they're going to serve you. And if you don't know who they are, and they're talking about serving you, that defeats the whole point. I mean, when you have people up in government, I mean, when's the last time anyone here spoken to their state representative? If you had a conversation with your state representative in the past, I don't know, 6 months, raise your hand. I mean, I know, the past 3 months, past week, no. Do anyone here know who the state representative is for this district? For this district? You spoken to your city council person? Anybody? Raise your hand. Your mayor? Very few of us. We gotta be engaged. We gotta know who these people are, because it's so easy for them to make decisions on the things that happen in our lives, whether it's the trash, it's the water. These things are important, especially the local stuff. Because while everybody is paying attention to DC and what's happening around the world, everything affecting you in your local everyday life is happening right here, in a building right down the street.
And and they don't have to make the meetings at 10 a.m. You know, we saw a lot of possibilities happen because of the pandemic. All of a sudden, it was okay for them to have meetings where people can join virtually. They're trying to roll those things back as if it didn't just happen. But meeting virtually allowed a lot of access for people to participate in a meaningful way, right? Also, to park downtown, to go to these meetings, you gotta have a lot of parking money to park, right? And they could easily waive that, right? They can waive those fees for days of commission, right? This is what I mean when I'm talking about imagining what could be, right? You shouldn't have to pay to go to your commission meetings, right? You're already paying them. And so to me, those are the things that I think impede democracy, and it's not by chance that, you know, this exists. Maryland, you can sign up the same day and vote the same day in the state of Maryland. There are countries where election day is a day off. You facilitate the process so that people can be engaged and you remove barriers, right? And so we have to ask questions, why so many barriers, why much red tape, excuse me, for folks who are saying we are a democracy, we want this to be better. Everything in me is like, I'm a fight girl, I come from a fight country. If you ever watch what's going on in Haiti, people in Haiti ready to take the streets on anything, right? For rain, if it rains too hard, they rain, right? And so, but again, that's in me that we know that unless you fight, people will remove everything from you. And I'm gonna go to you because you did have a question, sir. Thank you, Elijah.
Thank you, Elijah. Thank you.
I got a question for you, actually. Don't you say that because I'm asking. Come on. My question for Elijah is, you said you were at city commission meetings at 15, so I'm curious, like, what sparked that interest for you? Was it, was it just your growing up? Like, you told me, what sparked that interest?
I was always the awkward one in the family. I cared about those things. They were so boring. Everybody, you watch those meetings for, 5 minutes, you're ready to fall asleep. Me, I just always like looking at that stuff. But as I was growing up, homelessness was a big issue for us. Many times we were living out of my mom's car, out of a storage facility, couch surfing. We go, I talked about this before, go to the beach sometime really early in the morning before the light came out, shower there and then go to school like it was nothing. And sometimes I wear the same pants for days. And I started to wonder, I'm probably not the only person this is happening to. I know a lot of other students who were, being affected by poverty in some way. So, I just go to the school board meetings and, attend those meetings and pay attention to what's happening there. I speak there. You can probably find 1,000 videos of that on the internet. We can be kicked out of there and dragged out of there. I don't know. But I go there and a lot of times they'll tell me, this is not a school board issue. Go to the county. I go to the county and they'll tell me, this is not a county issue. Go to the city. And the city say, go back to the school board and they'll say, go to Tallahassee. And I did go to Tallahassee. You know what Tallahassee told me? We don't give a damn when I went. Nobody wanted to meet with me when I was 17 and I went up there. I couldn't find my own representative at that time. Nobody wanted to talk to me. This kid, who is it? No one cared. And so that really was more of a frustration and anger that really got me more involved. But I wanted to channel it in a way that was constructive. And I didn't want to just scream and yell about it. I said, well, I'm old enough to run, so why not do it? Why not take the time to go out there and get the signatures, get on the ballot, put my name out there, and even if I was going to lose or not, give people a choice, give them the opportunity, because a lot of the time people have that choice there. They have that opportunity to get some people out of office. It's there. Sometimes you have really good candidates running, but people are not engaged. And it's our job to get people engaged. I don't want to really make it, anyone feel like be guilty or anything because they weren't. As a candidate, it's my job to give you something to care about voting for. Give you, a reason to want to come out to the polls. So I hope to do that, and that's how I kind of got involved. There's a lot more to it, but anyone else out there, if you're young or you can be old too, I don't care. If you really feel like you want to get involved, it's never too early, it's never too late to get involved in the political system and do something about it. I wanted to do something about it. That's my concern.
So there's a lot going on here. To me, Joe Biden wouldn't be president if James Clyburn in South Carolina hadn't gone and said, Buttigieg, you won't win. Elizabeth Warren, you're not going to win, and so on. He went through all of them and said, you're not going to win. The only guy who got a chance to win is Joe Biden, because black Americans will go vote for Joe Biden. And I think that was the calculation. James Clyburn turned the election in South Carolina, focusing it on the one guy who might be able to connect, and that was Biden. Kamala Harris then was selected as vice president. And whatever anybody thinks of Kamala Harris or anybody, the future of progressive politics, in my view, in this country will be led by black voters, by the black community, because black people show up, mostly. In my community, you alluded to it, I think once you win, it's kind of like, oh, we don't have to fight anymore. Black people fight every day, have had to for the longest time. White Americans have the luxury of taking time off. And I think that's what's happened since the election. People are exhausted. 4 years of, every day you would go, I can't believe what's going on. Where I'd like to sort of get a sense is we know Val Demings is going to run against Marco Rubio. Nikki Fried is running against DeSantis. And to me, turnout is dictated by who you get excited by. Now, Val Demings was a police chief in Orlando, plus or minus, who knows? But she's a black woman who is taking on somebody who is the worst. And he's worse and worse every time he opens his mouth. So the question is, for as much as you want to move things in the most dynamic way possible, at what point does Val Demings get your support because it's better than the alternative? And this to me is the practical reality of power. Power is, do you want them in charge or somebody who is at least more agreeable? And I think that's where progressives lose a lot, is by, my daughter was a Bernie Sanders, voted for the first time. Bernie Sanders, she's not going to vote. We got her a ballot, I stood over her, I said, you mark that ballot. Okay?
That's right, good father, good father.
And that was it. She marked for Joe Biden, we nailed it in. Okay? We lost in that part, but and I said to her, you will not get everything you always want. But you better get, do you want Ron DeSantis? You know, do you want Marco Rubio? Why we're losing, why we can't get voting rights even talked about is because one Democratic senator is under some fantasy that these other people are going to help him. They don't care. They're out to wipe us out. I can tell you, that's their game now, to wipe us out. Wipe out progressivism, they call it Marxist now. And that's what's going on. So I guess my question, for as much as you want to see transformational politics, how do you get to transformation if you can't win the big elections that get you there in the first place?
I told CJ I want to go before him because he's like a full mature abolitionist. I'm like a baby abolitionist, just want to be very honest. Because there's some people I just feel fundamentally, people like maybe Trump, they gotta go to the bottom of the jail, the bottom of the pit, like burn. I'm sorry, Lord. Still working on it. Still working on the concept of abolition. You know, a friend of mine, just this morning, we were on a call and he said, y'all might know him, his name is Rudy Jean Barr. He said, he said in this panel we were on, he said, you know, if the doctor, both diabetes and cancer are bad, but if you got to pick, what y'all picking? Diabetes, it's bad. There's ways to control it. Cancer sometimes, you know, for where we are with the science is not there yet. And so sometimes when you think about elections, and people talk about elections, right? You know, I'm a Haitian, you know, the Biden administration under pressure gave Haitians TPS another 18 months, another 18 months. Do we want TPS for another 18 months? No. We want a full pathway to citizenship. However, people is getting ready to get sent home into a place that is not, you know, a lot has to do with foreign government interference. Got that. And right now, we don't want people to be deported in massive ways. Not that that's not happening, but there's, you know, to me, there's levels to this. I'm gonna let CJ take y'all all the way over to the, to the hell no, we won't go. We want progressive.
See, man, you don't have to assume. Okay, so
I voted for Biden, right?
Me too, but I was a Bernie fan.
Yeah,
Like the dog.
I was Bernie, ride or die Bernie, right? So, you know, I to some extent, I believe in harm reduction, right? However, to your point around, you know, better them than someone else, or, you know, like this past week, we just saw Kamala Harris, a daughter of 2 immigrants, essentially tell Central Americans to stay their asses home, right? So the problem with that, right, is that when you say, okay, let's vote in someone like Val Demings, or let's, you know, vote in someone like Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, and then they do, right? We saw exactly what happens when we win with these centrist Democrats. Everyone on November 5th chilled out. And then what happened in Atlanta? What happened down here? What happened in Ohio? What happened in Louisiana? People lost voting rights. People lost repro rights, right? So when, well, hold on, I'm answering your question. Hold on, no, but that's my point, right? When Trump was in office, there was a galvanization all over the country. It wasn't just federal, it was state, it was local. So when you say, oh, we got Trump out, everyone chilled. So that gave these state and local governments an opportunity to, because this HB1 thing, right? DeSantis didn't author that bill. DeSantis did not write HB1. It might have been Alec, it might have been someone else, but
There was someone that is not a Floridian, because you're seeing those same pieces of HB1 popping up all over the country.
CJ, what's HB1?
HB1 is the anti-protest bill, that would essentially make protesting in Florida illegal. You know, to some degree, it's a third-degree felony, which would take away your right to vote. So you don't need to necessarily have voter suppression laws, as long as laws like that exist. So there are at least 36 other states with similar laws, one of which, like Elijah was talking about, if you get arrested at a protest, you can't even run for office. So when I say, you know, you talk about harm reduction, you talk about the better of 2 evils, we need to get people in the habit of saying, yeah, okay, well, let's vote for the guy who's not a complete racist, you know, homophobe, transphobe, whatever you want to call him. But when we get this other guy in, he's just a placeholder for the person we actually want to take over, which is why we need elected officials.
20 years we've been.
Huh?
20 years we've been.
20?
Let me throw something. As we get ready to wrap this up a little bit.
I'm sorry, there is
No. I want to really open it, and because you said something about, you know, just this, I want to say realistic or pessimistic, this outlook, right? What can we as individuals do? What is the actionable items? What are the actionable items? Because we can, like, again, you know, we talk about it, but what can we do, right? Beyond good, it is supporting somebody like Elijah, but what can we do? Grassroots, ground level, whether it's resources or whatever time, and that's to everybody. It's like if you all in the audience have ideas, please add those as well. But it's open.
Find your political home. There are, like you said, there are organizations all over Broward County that are doing this work. Dream Defenders is one of them. Doesn't necessarily mean you have to, you know, join with us, right? I mean, we're pretty friggin' radical, but yeah, join with us.
And that's cool.
That's cool, yeah, that's cool. Right now we are currently working on a mutual aid project to bring community farming to the inner city, teaching people how to self-sustain, grow their own foods.
Which we used to do.
Which we used to absolutely do. We're gonna be doing a deep canvassing project over the course of the next 3 months, where we will be in these neighborhoods, knocking on doors, talking to people and asking them what changes they want in their community, because no one is asking them those questions. And it's only until we get those answers that we then know what fights we actually need to start fighting. A huge issue that that we saw with organizations last year is that they were fighting causes based on what their individual members thought were important. And then when we went out on the streets and started talking to people, those issues weren't matching up with what we were hearing from people that were actually in the community. Now, not to say that we aren't members of the community, right? I live right up the street, but I'm a radical. I'm an abolitionist. Not everybody's an abolitionist. Some people just want speed bumps on their blocks, so they cars ain't riding down the block doing 60 miles an hour. Some people just want covered bus stops, so they're not getting rained on when they're waiting to get the bus to go to work. Start small, talk to people, but you don't get those answers unless you ask them those questions. So yes, join an organization, give maybe 2, 3, 4 hours a week dedicated to improving your community. We are here for a reason. The reason y'all showed up today was to support your community. That's one way to do it. There are tons of other ways to do it. I will actually be walking around and giving y'all an opportunity to fill out a small questionnaire so that I can send you more information. We can send you more information about Dream Defenders. And if you are interested, you can absolutely join us. We need that young blood. We need that new blood, fresh ideas. So that's my answer, Darius.
I would say run for office, run for office, run for office. If you're a woman, run for office. Right? It's not enough of us. They don't look like us. They're not from the communities that we're from. I'm a feminist, so I strongly believe women can really run this world. So I think we need more women in that mindset, in that brain power, in positions of power. And run for office don't mean you need to run for Congress. I will tell y'all, student government, HOAs, any of them. All of the above, right? If you're in clubs, all of them have access to some kind of power. So join the club, and if you're not ready to run for office, every time there's an election, you just make sure you vote, right? And if you don't know who to vote for, plenty of organizations will help you with slate cards. Make sure it's trustworthy because there's a lot of foolishness out there. But plenty of organizations will help you if you just can commit every election, not just presidential, every time there is an election in your district, you gonna vote. That would make a hell of a difference, right? And then the next phase, I would say, join an organization, be involved in the leadership of that organization. Also, y'all, it's us who don't want to run, but it's our communities getting the end of the stick, right? We have to have people who gonna run, and when they run, we gotta support them, knock on doors and donate to their campaigns, right? I will say that I'm gonna always tell people to run for office. I know hell of amazing people inside a community who would make great elected officials, and we're too scared, we're too fearful, we think it's not for us. It's for us. It's not for them, it's for us, right? And I think that this world would change if there was more of us really making those kinds of decisions. So those are the opportunities, I think. Check me out, Avanse Ansanm is Haitian Creole for moving forward together. Again, Black culture, people of color culture, really everything about us in our history and our traditions is collectivism, right? We believe in the collective. Quick story, I went to visit my family's home in Port-au-Prince, Haiti, the north side of Haiti. The north side, there would not be a free Haiti if not for the northern side. So shout out to the people who are from the north part of Haiti. Y'all not from there, people take that a little personally, it gets a little beef. But when I got there, I saw a house on this compound for my grandma, one house for my aunt, one house for my mama. Everybody lived together. When I went to the town, they always ask you, what's your family's name? Like, what's my mama's last name? Bella's there. They can tell you your whole lineage. We don't even know our neighbors here, right? A hurricane happened, we don't know who can cook on the block. We don't know who got generators. We don't know nothing. That's not what we are. That's not who we are. So I would say get to know your neighbors in your block, because social capital is how we are able to sustain these shocks of life, right? If you had a neighbor who you knew like that, if something happened during a hurricane, they'll help you out, right? Right? They'll watch your kids if you have an emergency, right? You might need to start working different shifts. They might say, hey, I got you, because you have a neighbor, you have a relationship. So that's another opportunity. If none of the above sounds good to you, you're not ready, get to know the people who live on your street, because there's a way that you can start to be active that way. And I'll pause and see if there's anyone from the audience who has any other thoughts. Darius didn't give us the time, but he's trying to wrap us up.
Yo, Umoja, man, that unity, like that's real.
Right here in the yellow, then we come back to you, sir.
So I teach debate, and especially this year, I've had the opportunity to really kind of push the conversation about voting and history of voting, because I feel like, even for myself, I'm Haitian American, and so a lot of things, until I learned the history, I really didn't understand the importance of voting. So one of the conversations was the solidarity that white people had when the conversation of they did not feel that the election was fair. And so a lot of the black students, said, well, first of all, I raised my hand because I really want, when you guys are canvassing, to really canvass to the children in the house, because they're the ones that really push agendas, they're the ones that really have these conversations that force adults to be honest with themselves. That's what I've noticed. Like, why are you voting the way that you are? And they have to explain themselves. And I think a lot of people recognize their decisions through that. So any opportunity you have to touch the debate, because I watch school board meetings with the kids. I watch certain things because, especially the school where I was at, there was a situation that they had to get involved in. So I use that opportunity for them to understand the whole voting process, even for them, just the school board, right? So reach out to your debate teachers, because that's part of their curriculum. So having them, see things live is really, really important. So when the conversation about the riots were happening, the black students were saying, this has nothing to even do with us. And I had to check them and say, no, you have to understand that the fight was, and this is just me sharing with them, and you guys may have different views. These quote-unquote white people are saying that their democracy has been under attack. Whether you believe it or not, or agree with it, the people are allowed and have the right to ask and say, hey, this election was not done properly according to democracy. I need you to do checks and balances and make sure that this is correct. I said at the end of the day, that's what happens. And if that is attacked or destroyed, then that affects everyone, white, black, blue, doesn't matter. So that's how I was able to frame it for the kids, like, listen, this is not a black or white issue. If everyone feels like they have been wronged, that's what America is supposed to be about. So that caused the kids to be like, oh, okay, but I did say to the one student, she chose the perfect word, that solidarity. It's like, she said that there was no swaying of ideas. There's no, we feel wrong, we want checks and balances. And so I say that to say that a lot of the Black Lives Matter and a lot of, this is just my own opinion, do not have that solidarity within the community. And I think that once we have that solidarity, a lot of the issues that we, as Black people, are suffering from will be able to express it. Now that's systemic, to cause that divide, but it's really important for us to understand that and use that and take that as an example when we are fighting our causes, and to make sure that the children are involved, because they are moving the adults based on what I've seen.
I can say something.
Absolutely.
I was in a Santra the other day talking to this dude, and he was in a situation, and at the end of that conversation, because he was in fear because he had experienced something that was down in Miami, and he was in a similar situation that I was in, and I handled the situation with grace, and he handled the situation with fear. And so I told him that if you're in a situation where you're afraid of something, you have to protect yourself. And so you guys talk, and talking is cool, I talk as well, but I live out in the road and I'm always on the go. And so I meet a lot of people. And so with politics and all of that type of stuff, this guy, Elijah Manley, this dude is amazing, I love this guy. But with all of the politics, I'm not involved with politics because I'm more in the spiritual place. And so everything in my world has become more physical because I became more spiritual. And so with all of the talking, if you put yourself in a position that I told the man in fear to put yourself in a position of protection over a position of attack. To debate is to argue. And so if it's not an argument, then you will reach a higher level of peace. And there's so much debate. That's why solidarity is sometimes better. But then you want to come together with the community, so there's a lot to talk about.
No, absolutely. And just to respond really quick to your point, I agree that on the left there is a lot of division. There's a lot of kind of infighting because everybody thinks that they're right. There's very little concessions. However, in regards to the uprisings last year, the Black Lives Matter uprisings, the George Floyd uprising, whatever you want to call them, there was solidarity there. There was solidarity across the country. There was solidarity across the world, right? That was the largest civil rights movement in human history, right? But to compare it to the January insurrection, and I actually I know someone who is a Capitol police officer. They weren't met with tear gas, right? Like so when you can be in solidarity with people who have the same views as you, and you don't get that militarian response, it's very easy to get your point across. We were in solidarity for George Floyd, and we were tear gassed. We were shot. We were with rubber bullets. So it's hard for me to like really compare those two situations and say like, oh well, this is what you guys have to do because that's what we did, and that was not the response that was met. So that's essentially all I really like to say about that.
All right.
Thank you.
With that, I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah. First of all, can y'all please give it up for CJ Santra? Yeah, and I'm sorry to cut the conversation short, right? Because it was going great. But we also, so the idea behind Umoja Cypher Sessions, did we already talk about what Umoja means? Like, right? Like unity, right? Like you see that on that t-shirt right there. And so we want to have these unified conversations. We want to unify in the space, but we also want to create together, right? Collectively, like that's what's important as well. So we're actually going to transition over to the back where Ms. Connie is going to guide us in an art workshop, all right? So if you can all, like, as the Echo Slim holds us down on the ones and twos, find a space to sit back there and be prepared to create. And also, wait, hold on one second, hold on. As you move, you'll notice that there are some QR codes placed around the room on these black tables, one right near Zaire and one in the back. If you find the time, and when I say if, I mean please find the time, scan that QR code and do a survey about how you feel about this event, how you feel things have been going, right? All right, so with that being said, let's get it.
So when you rinse your brush out, you want to dab it and make sure that the brush is not too wet when you're painting. I think I'll You're asking that.
Why did you take this?
Umoja Cypher Sessions here at our Prevails project. Amazing event. It's about the community, it's about unity, it's about art, it's about coming together and seeing how can we make change and how can we move forward. Thank you Community Foundation of Broward, Fat Village, everybody involved in making this an amazing event for our community to see what we can do to make a change.